Some of the images you'll create in Photoshop will be displayed as backgrounds for web pages, for banners, and other page elements. A background image is a single image file that's coded in the source code of a web page to repeat itself to fill a background area. So an image that starts out as a small graphic like this in Photoshop can be optimized in a web format and brought into a site building program, coded there with CSS, and when viewed in a web browser, result in a background that looks like this. This page background is generated entirely from that one small graphic that I just showed you, repeating itself over and over across and down the background of a page in my web browser. A background like this will fill a viewer's browser no matter how big or how small the viewer has her browser stretched out on any size monitor. In the past, coding an image as a repeating background was done in HTML, which always resulted in the image repeating itself both horizontally and vertically across and down a background area like this. Today, in Dreamweaver and other site-building environments, CSS is used to code a background image rather than just HTML. And CSS offers the option to repeat an image in both directions like this, or just vertically like this, or just horizontally like this, or not at all. If you'd like to see how that coding is done in Dreamweaver, take a look at the movies on background images in the lynda.com course called Dreamweaver CS5 Essential Training. The advantage of a file being coded as a background image is that the viewer's browser has to download only one image file, and that image file can be pretty small to fill the background of an entire web page or other page element. The advantage of a file being coded as a background image is that the viewer has to download only one image file, and that image file can be pretty small in file size. And then that small file will fill the background of an entire web page or other page element. When you're designing a background image, it's wise to keep some general design considerations in mind. One of those is the size of the image. The smaller the background image that you make in Photoshop, the more times it will repeat across the background area, and that will give you a very different look. So you saw the size of the background image that made this repeating background. Now take a look at the background made by a smaller version of the same file in Photoshop. It looks quite different. So when you're creating a file in Photoshop for a background, size your image for the look that you have in mind. The color of the background image is also a really important design consideration. Colors whose brightness values are high in contrast, like these light and dark colors, can be quite distracting when repeated over and over. And they can make it difficult to see and focus on foreground elements you'll place on top of them. So try to stick with colors that don't contrast one with the other, like these which are both in the light range of color value, or these which are both in the dark range. Even if you do a good job of choosing non-contrasting colors for your background, think about the overall brightness or darkness of your background pattern. If you've got a light background, then plan to use foreground elements like text or graphics that are dark, or your foreground elements will be hard to read against the light background. And if you're making a dark background, plan foreground elements that are light. By the way, the text colors in this dark background image and in this light background image are exactly the same. They just look very different against a light or dark background. And finally, try to stay away from medium value background images like this, because you'll find that colors of almost any brightness value will be hard to read against a medium background. So when you're designing web backgrounds, choosing the right size and color can have a big effect on the way your page looks in a viewer's browser. Keep these factors in mind as you work through the movies in this chapter.